scary. Now Canada is euthanizing autistic people. This is the reason that I named today's stream, in part, Autistic Genocide, because this is kind of genocidal. I don't say that very often. A father, and this is the really bad part as well. It's not just that they, as a matter of policy, are open to doing it, but they're forcing it. A father has discovered that he is powerless to stop his perfectly healthy daughter being killed. Yeah, no, that's like I've been saying for a while, Canada is so bad that you should leave if you're there. And I get it, you want to stay and defend it and make it, I get it. But if the UK was this bad, I would probably leave. Like if this specifically starts happening in the UK, I will probably leave. Especially because I intend to raise a family at some point. And, you know, there's a non-zero chance that Motch and I will produce autistic offspring. Yeah, a non-zero. So, yeah, this is really bad. Canada is probably the worst Anglosphere country for authoritarian overreach these days. Lighthouse's father can go and save his daughter, being a bystander makes him complicit. If he can take her away from Canada, I'd certainly support that. But again, to be very clear, that's just the title and subtitle. I haven't read the article yet. Let's read more because this could be somewhat misleading. The article from Spiked begins, imagine one day you discover that your adult daughter, who still lives with you, wants to be euthanized. As far as you are aware, she is healthy. She suffers from autism and ADHD, but no physical illnesses or disabilities that you know of. You know that she has faced many difficulties in her life, but you love her and desperately want to prevent her death. You are left fighting against her doctors who encourage her decision and are perfectly happy to help her go through with this. To make this nightmare even worse, no one will even tell you why your daughter has been approved to die. So, despite how horrible this still is, it is a lot less bad than the title and subtitle imply. She is an adult, and she is volunteering for the procedure. Now, those are the ameliorations to the otherwise even more horrible story I thought it was from the title. However, the question we must ask, and I think we know the answer, is would she be doing this if not for the encouragement of the medical establishment and professionals around her? Probably not. To be really clear, what I said at the beginning was based on the notion that this article was talking about a young child who was being forcefully killed because she had autism. And, you know, I said that with the knowledge that that title and subtitle could have been misleading. And it turns out that's not what's happening. She's an adult and she's volunteered for it. The question then is, how coerced was she? And it could still be autistic genocide if the coercion is targeted and intentional, which it, you know, these days, given what I've seen of the attempts to transify the autistic populations of any Western country, I could believe that there could be some intention there. James says, this still sounds like Reich-level shit, but then again, what did I expect from one country that absolutely did horrendous shit to Nazis back in World War II, historically speaking? Also former French people, so there is that, yeah. I don't know about the what they allegedly did to Nazis, but I could believe it. I know that Canada was often described as very unethical on the battlefield. Australia has, I think, received that accolade as well. I'll read a bit more, but this is not as bad as it initially seemed. But again, I suspect coercion is involved here. Quote, this is the awful reality facing one father in Alberta, Canada. Isn't Alberta supposed to be this like the most based or the least cringe state in Canada, or is it the? I can't remember. I thought it was the least bad. A judge issued a ruling this week that clears the way for a 27-year-old woman known to the court only as MV to be accepted into Canada's medical assistant in dying maid program. Despite the attempts by her father, known as WV, to prevent this, there was really very little that could have been done. Under Canadian law, the court had no choice but to allow his daughter to be killed. According to the twisted logic of assisted dying campaigners, this is the compassionate option. It isn't. Now, if you are living in constant pain and you're not going to get better, I understand if you want to be euthanized. If I was designing a country, I might set it up so that that is a hard limit, that is required before euthanasia can occur. But more likely, I just wouldn't allow it because it's such a dangerous thing to permit. what this is she's probably depressed. Now, depression is not a metric that you should kill yourself. If it gets really extreme, it can manifest that, but that almost never happens in women anyway. But besides that, depression is an indication that something is wrong. Not always external, but often external from you, but in your life, something is wrong and that you need to solve it. Now, you won't not always know what it means, but it's essentially your deep instinct has detected a problem, and it can't always relay it to your conscious mind directly, but it needs to be fixed. And this is why I think SSRIs and any sort of antidepressant or anti-whatever else medication is probably a terrible idea, because it's just masking that problem. It's just allowing you to not feel that depression day to day, but the problem is still there. There's a reason you feel that negativity. It's because the problem is still there. I think very often the depression might be the result of someone, there being a problem, and then that person just having no sort of internal processes that will eventually get them to the point of solving it. I.e., it's not a problem in a region they're willing to see. So if any one of you is depressed, and this is my totally amateur armchair reasoning here, but I suspect it's right. If any of you in chat are depressed, look for problems in places that you have never looked before, that you would not think to look before, even if it seems like a small problem. And the best thing to start with is, as Jordan Peterson would say, clean your room. Make the area around you, just explode order from yourself around you outward, and take control of your environment. Having control of your environment is a massive boost usually, so try and do that, and be brave in taking leaps to separate yourselves from the things you thought you had to rely on if they are the source of your problem. You have to be brave in that way. It's part of being human. Nah, Seamer, I'm not saying people should just stop being depressed. I know it's real. What I'm saying is specifically, yes, it is real, and I think here's why. Yeah, okay, fair enough, Seamer. Okay, so well, yeah, it is real, but it's not just it's not like a disease. It's not some mysterious malady or some infection that just sort of happens. No, it's caused by something. I suppose someone could have something that is more akin to an infection, maybe some sort of hormonal imbalance that is not related to their actual mental state or life circumstances. I suppose it could be true, but don't assume that's you when there is a distinct possibility that there is actually something wrong you just haven't looked at yet. Now, I'm saying this I have been depressed in the past, but that's been as the result of something. I'm not depressed now, and that I think I've cleared out the things that would bother me enough to be depressed. Keith says, antidepressants are just a bandage. Depression makes it impossible to do even daily tasks. I recently started antidepressants and they are helping me. At some point in the future, I'll come off them. But while I still have a problem to fix, I'll utilize them as the useful tool they are. I understand that. Yeah, if you're using them that way, I could see that. But yeah, obviously make sure you do actually pursue solving the problems and take control of your environment. It sounds like you have the right idea of it, Keith, so good luck. But be careful with those medicines. I've heard a lot of bad stories about them. To be eligible for MAID, a patient needs to have a grievous and irredeemable medical condition. In court, MV did not need to identify which medical condition she is supposed to be suffering from. She was not required to provide information about her symptoms or explain how they cause her to suffer. All her parents have seen is the evidence that she followed the correct procedures to access MAID and that her eligibility was approved by 2 doctors. Yeah, so the process appears to be, now I'm not sure how it is in Canada, maybe some Canadians in chat, if there are any, can confirm, but the NHS, and as I had to personally experience it recently, is full of foreigners, foreign nurses and doctors. Now, this is not inherently a problem. It is, the disbalance is stark. It's like 90% foreign, 90% black and brown. And again, that doesn't make them worse, and actually the ones I dealt with were very good. They seem to be good anyway. But it does mean they don't have quite the same allegiances or quite the same empathy towards the people of the country they're in. Not always, but it tends more in that direction as a biological necessity of the way people are. So it may be that the strategy is clear out their own people from the hospitals and then let our middle manager doctors, who are all foreign, get subtle, indirect bonuses for agreeing to kill the locals. That could be the strategy. I wouldn't be surprised. If it is, it may well happen here. It may well happen where you are as well. But Canada is apparently getting it first. And this is really horrible. The culture war was always going to be, as I described it before, a series of colossal grinding gears, grinding over the harsh, muddied landscape of reality where all these little individuals are running around trying to evade the gears and survive any way they can. That's the picture of what this culture war is like. And unfortunately, the movement of those colossal gears does not give a single toss about the individuals it crushes along the way. But the gears are the process of human nature decaying, expanding, bloating, becoming self-destructive, and then potentially self-repairing. And that process is natural and always going to happen, but it may end up to the point where a lot of people get crushed under those cogs in that process. And unfortunately, though this doesn't justify it in the slightest, but it is a better way of viewing it, that is what's happening with the MAID program. We are learning as part of this, as a society, why this is a bad idea. And we're learning slowly, but more and more people in Canada are going to be becoming aware this isn't good. And it's already been happening with lots of other things as well. We've been gradually marching through a series of these ideas and figuring out, well, this isn't good, and they gradually lose their power. But this is now the one we're dealing with. Our opponent just keeps intensifying and stepping up the severity of what's happening. That can't go on forever. But it's going to be really nasty living through it. I think I'll wrap up there on this article because that's about all I wanted to say.